question of what big changes you can bring about now. She was concerned naturally with the subjugation of women, the abolition of slavery. She wrote to Edmund Burke saying, very peculiarly for me when I first read it, I didn't understand what she meant, because she was a revolutionary, Mary Wollstonecraft, but she wrote to Burke saying, I can't understand on what principle you can support the American Declaration of Independence. What was the problem there, I wonder? But I think what was is that because the Declaration of Independence did not deal with slavery, and therefore it was the right of some people but not others. And the judgment he was making that that is not utopia. You can give the slaves the right and free them straight away. And while they were waging the war of independence, they could engage in that issue then and there, which was the position of Adam Smith also, not often recognized. Talked to such a conservative philosopher who was absolutely dead keen on the abolition of slavery, and so on, Marquis de Condorcet. And I think there were always arguments, will this be a change? Would this be feasible in the human rights dialogue? All the time making open, keeping open, further questions to be raised as the world changes. So I think it's incremental, it's dialogic, it's interactive in all these features. I do discuss that, by the way, Mahesh, in my idea of justice in the penultimate chapter, in the 18th chapter book, and chapter 17 is on that subject. So if I may refer to that, and you're now going to chat on that. Over to you.
Right. I think there's quite a few hands going up, so maybe this is how we will manage the questions, because I've actually saw this hand first. But for those of you who have already raised your hands, what about coming up to the microphones and then in fact making a line, and then I will try to make this, a most justifiable process as possible. So you have had your hands up and you really want to ask your question, please come and form some sort of a line behind the microphone. So it will really help. Thank you. So maybe this question from this side. So don't be shy, please. Come and line up.
Swadikap, Ni Hao, and Namaskar. I'm a postdoctoral researcher. My name is Salil Sen.
I didn't get the name.
Sholil Sen.
Sholil Sen, okay,
yeah. The word which is resonating is the action.
You have to get closer to the microphone.
The word that is resonating is the action word. You mentioned that the big is following the small. I have an analogy for you to comment on. We have these alphabets all over the world.
Alphabet.
And the alphabet.
Yeah.
And the consonants are always more than the vowels. I believe the vowels are the action words. But right now in the global situation, the consonants are not behaving very well. We can see the currency wars, the currency conflicts, the coercion, the cataclysms due to global warming, the colossal pandemics which you mentioned. If these vowels like articulation, empathy, inclusiveness, ownership, and ubiquitous, these vowels can become more in the lexicon of the leaders, then we will have the grassroots people getting into action.
Well, I think there's 2 points. There's the linguistic point about vowels and consonants. And I may invoke a great grammarian of 4th century BC, namely Panini, saying it's an illusion to think that vowels can be pronounced alone. Even when you just say o, a, e, u, there is a consonant there, which is the absent consonant. It's not like ka, ku, ki, but it's o, a. There is a consonant there, but it's a suppressed consonant. So I don't think you can really get onto a debate between vowels and consonants. Right? You have to combine them to make any kind of sense. But that's not a serious answer to your question, but it deals with the metaphor with which you started. On the question of how to resolve these issues, I'm not sure that I've fully got the tension that you're referring to, Salim. But it's possible that you're concerned with the view that the vocality often makes a big difference compared with incest. For example, one of my complaints have been that Africa gets very little hearing these days. G20 has very little representation of Africa. And I think the developing countries, other developing countries which are there, don't end up taking up the case for Africa. Because there was a time when India did try to do that, but it doesn't do anymore. Recently I've been chastising India, along with Thailand, of course China even more, about going along with the military dictatorship in Burma. Because there was a vowel there, as you would put it, in the form of Aung San Suu Kyi, but of course he had been silenced by the consonants of the military rulers, if I may use your analogy there. So I think what we have to do is to see how the unrepresented interests get expression in these forums, in the global forums and elsewhere. That's a very big question. And it's a subject that will come up with global warming, dealing with issues of global justice, including medical care across the world, patent rights. The old patent rights may be changing, what would be its implications. All of these are issues of global justice, which needs global engagement. Neither the resignation that comes from the social contract approach, there is no global justice, it's a chimera, nor that it's too complicated. No issue is too complicated if it's within reasoning to discuss whether the changes proposed are good changes or bad changes, and what other changes we'd like to propose. I think it's that incremental dialogic view that Mahesh Patel was raising in a different context of human rights remains central, even in answer to your question. So thanks very much for asking that.
Thank you, sir. I believe it's on this side, and the lady in the black, and then we will switch over to the side.
Hello, Dr. Sen. It's a pleasure to come here and meet you. My name is Ashok Sadwani. I'm based in Los Angeles, and I come to Thailand once every year to teach a semester at Chula. I teach in Los Angeles International Business and Trade. In fact, I was born in Calcutta, and I'm flying there tomorrow, and next week we've planned actually to go and spend one day in Shantiniketan, 1 day and 1 night. Even though I was born in Calcutta.
Tomorrow.
I'm flying tomorrow to Calcutta. We'll be going to Shantiniketan on Monday. So the
You're 1 day behind me. I'm going to Calcutta today. I'm going to Shantiniketan tomorrow. So I will be just 1 day ahead in each field.
If you're going to be staying overnight, we are at the Mark and Meadows. Maybe we can bump into each other.
No, I'm coming back. Well, my friend George Yeo, the foreign minister of Singapore, wanted to see Shantiniketan, Tagore, and I was also born there with a close friend, so I'm giving him a conducted tour of Shantiniketan.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sorry that I going to be one day later.
I'll keep the place warm for you.
Thank you. I'm sure you will. It will be a wonderful visit there because I've never ever been. Looking forward to it. My question concerns about, you said that there is no system of global justice because there are so many countries in the world and it's very hard for every country to coagulate their thoughts, and there are so many different kinds of justice. But my question relates to some kind of an index. Just like there is a transparency index perhaps or corruption index in the world, if there is something like that, or if there isn't, perhaps are countries developing that, or could they develop a global justice index, and many countries then could draw from the different kinds of justice, like the social justice, religious justice, economic justice, and be able to do some research and come to some kind of dialogue between the different government departments within each country as well as within countries in the world as a whole. So your thoughts on some index in the future?
So my thoughts on this, first of all, let me clarify. I didn't say there is no justice, there are different countries, etc. My point was contrary. I'm glad you raised the question. That those who take a social contract approach, they would say it's a chimera. That is not my view. That's the view I'm rejecting. We may disagree on our ultimate view of society, and the perspectives that are coming from different countries may also differ, but we can still agree on many things. Like we could arrive at a reasonable global agreement on global warming, which didn't emerge in Copenhagen, because the whole idea of getting such an agreement, which Europeans were very keen on, without first having had the extensive dialogue, how to address the issues, European priority on stopping all kinds of emissions as quickly as possible, the Chinese priority of allowing them to pollute a bit, because the Europeans have done it for a very long time, and the Indians somewhere in that direction, and the Americans relatively confused as to what they want from the global warming, if anything, coming partly from the contrast between the executive and the legislative branches of the American government. All these notwithstanding, there could have been much more discussion about is there a reasonable agreement. Not perfect. The Chinese may not feel they got what they wanted, and the Europeans may think that they didn't get all they wanted. But is there an agreement on which they could have arrived at, which would have been better than no agreement at all, and which would have been a little better than what had just emerged in the recent meeting and the follow-up, which wasn't a great achievement. So I think searching for agreed ways of enhancing justice or reducing injustice still remains a major territory through dialogue, through discussion, and through interchange. Indexing, has ended up being seen as kind of author of this index and that. People who don't know anything at all about my work point out I did something about Human Development Index. And recently, because I worked with Joe Stiglitz and others on the Sarkozy appointed commission, I get quoted about all kinds of things, including a happiness index, on which I never spoke actually, but it gets attributed. Even the Prime Minister of Britain was very kind, made a kind remark to me while introducing the happiness index, but it wasn't my idea. And so, but let me just say that I'm really a little, one way of putting it would be a little fed up with indexes. The main reason is, what is it that an index doing? I think it's very important to look at the foundation of maths behind an index. Index is a real number that the first job of which is to rank. 76 is higher than 23, we know that. But 76 is higher than 23 in a way that's bigger than 23 is higher than 22. So you're moving from various degrees of measurement. Many of our difficulty of justice is not to get even the ranking. And the distances, and one of my PhD theses, I'm very proud, I had about 150 brilliant PhD students in my life. One of which, Kaushik Basu's thesis, was about how you can get to so-called cardinality from differences, comparability, difference of difference, comparability, difference of difference of different, comparability, and so on. An index has all of them. That's too much to ask for, really. And I think we are getting into premature indexization of many things. The first thing to ask, what can we rank? If you get that, you already got some kind of purpose that an index is allowed to serve. If the index is not going to help any more than your basic thought about which is better, which is worse, which is what my book is concentrating on, is going to do. So am I in favor of index of justice? No, I'm not. Am I in favor of ranking of the just and unjust in each perspective? Yes, I am. But that's not the same thing as indexing. Indexing would have to have that ranking plus ranking of differences, and of course, Kaushik Basu, differences of differences and differences of differences of differences and so on. And that level of complexity is neither necessary nor achievable. So if